In this video, I'll show you how to process and edit dialogue in Logic, and I've decided to stick with the AKG C414B since it was my favorite mic for dialogue in the mic shootout from the last video. So I've got a recording I've made here just reading off some educational dialogue. Before working with audio, it's important to understand the difference between digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the signal coming from a microphone to an audio interface, the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers, or the signal coming from a portable music player to headphone, or the signal coming from a... So there's some gaps where I made mistakes, there's some breaths that we need to cut out, and there's a lot of editing we need to do to cut this down to the final version. So working with dialogue is one of the few situations where I actually like to process the vocals first and then edit second, because I like to hear what the final vocals will sound like as I play through the dialogue and edit everything. So I'm going to start with a gate, and I'm just going to use Logic's stock noise gate for this. I'm going to use this to reduce the breaths between phrases, and just like with sung vocals, you have to be careful about how to treat breaths in dialogue. I don't want to completely gate out the breaths, because it'll sound a bit jarring and odd. I prefer just reducing them, but it also depends on the context and purpose of the dialogue. So I'm going to play this section again and listen in for the breaths at these three spots. Digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, so to reduce the breaths and not completely cut them out, pull up your reduction amount quite a bit. So this is the amount of reduction applied when the signal passes below the threshold. And what I'll do is dial in a threshold setting, so I'm just reducing those breaths. Digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages. Next up, I'll add some EQ. I'm just using the channel EQ, and I'll do some things that are pretty similar to EQing sung vocals. I'll boost up the high end for a sibilance boost. I'll boost up the 1 to 2K range somewhere for a diction boost. I'll come back to that in a moment. I'll cut out a good chunk of the low end to get rid of any background bass, rumble, or guttural throat noises. And I'll reinforce the bass a bit just below my fundamental. Before working with audio, it's important to understand the difference between digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the signal coming from a microphone to an audio interface, the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers. Before working with audio, it's important to understand the difference between digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the signal coming from a microphone to an audio interface. So once again, I found the sweet spot for my diction boost by sweeping it around and then pulling it down to a more reasonable level. For compression, I just stick with the platinum digital circuit. I don't want to color the tone in any way. I want the compression to be completely transparent, and I'm not looking for a lot of compression either, just a touch. I'll turn off the auto release, I'll turn off the auto gain, and I'll pull the knee all the way up to a soft knee. I've heard a lot of people say, and I've read a lot of textbooks that say to roll the attack time down to the shortest attack time possible for dialogue. I disagree. I actually like pulling this up in the mid-range some more, because I find that when I pull the attack time all the way down, it cuts off the transients at the beginning of words, and it decreases the clarity of spoken word. The threshold and ratio can just be dialed in to taste. Before working with audio, it's important to understand the difference between digital audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the signal coming from a microphone to an audio interface, the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers. Next up, I'll show you how I edit. It's actually pretty simple. I turn snap mode off, I make sure that I have my scissors tool, and what I do is I go through and I trim up the front end of these phrases. And what I'll do is I'll actually sort of edit in real time during playback. Signal coming from a microphone to an audio interface, the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers, or the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers. Analog audio signals have continuous values, which means that they can be Analog audio signals have continuous values, which means that they can be infinitely divided by any 2 points in the signal. Digital audio generally exists in the realm of binary code in computer storage systems. Digital audio generally exists in the realm of binary code in So after I'm all done, I end up with a bunch of clips, and depending on how long the dialogue is, it could be dozens of clips like this. There's a really cool shuffling function in Logic. If you hold Option and then press bracket left, this will auto-shuffle everything to the nearest left region. And you can also do the same thing to the right. So if I drag over these 4, hit Option bracket right, it'll shuffle everything over that way. So I'm going to shuffle everything over here. And then typically what I do at this point is I select everything. I go into my region inspector here, click on More, add a crossfade to everything, and then just set a crossfade length. So I typically go with like 6 milliseconds. And it crossfades all of those joining points. From a microphone to an audio interface, or the signal coming from a portable music player to headphones or loudspeakers. Analog audio signals have continuous values, so depending on the context and the purpose of the dialogue, you might be done at this point. But if you're working on a project that needs to be as short as possible, you may choose to just cut out the breaths and gaps completely. Again, it all depends on the purpose of the dialogue and the type of project you're working on. So in this version, I went in and cut out all of the breaths and any short pauses. Audio signals and analog audio signals. Analog audio signals generally exist as voltages, such as the signal coming from a microphone. So that's how I process and edit dialogue in Logic. And this also wraps up this studio series on vocal recording and production in Logic. I thoroughly hope you enjoyed this course, and thanks for watching.